Sweet memories of Jedi Mickey and Darth Maul. No, not Darth Maul. Darth's Mall. You know, the shopping place. You don't know what that is? You're about to find out. This is Star Wars Reactions.
There's been an awakening. Have you felt it?
In 1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
The Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All of it.
One of resistance.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you. Always.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Star Wars Reactions. We're back this week, and we are going to have some fun reliving our memories of Star Wars weekends. Great times we had there, but we got to get stuff rolling. We got a lot to cover, so got some news we need to discuss and everything. My name is Aaron Harris. I'm one of your hosts, and joining me is an awesome co-host. He is, I can't come up with anything that connects right now because my mind is just going 1,000 different directions because of everything we're going to talk about tonight. So, David Motters, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, buddy. Yeah, no, my mind is going a million miles a minute as well here with everything that we're wanting to cover with Star Wars weekends and those memories and stuff, and so there's so much, and so yeah, you and I were even reminiscing before we started recording. There's so much, but ready to react and looking forward to recording with you again, my friend.
Same here, buddy. This is going to be a lot of fun here in this discussion. This is one that I've kind of been looking forward to since we had added it to our list of things to discuss. So here we are, and let's get it going. First off, though, we got news to discuss. A lot of news happening. Actually, we're recording this on Tuesday the 16th. A lot of news broke yesterday, which was Monday, and some of it is pretty big. And I don't want to, we just need to go over it. First off is probably the biggest news is the fact that Star Wars Celebration 2020, that was coming up in Anaheim, California, has officially been canceled.
This is a biggie, buddy. We've been talking in the last couple of shows when they were going to do this. So they did it almost 2 months out, right? We're mid-June. That was going to be, in essence, mid-August, end of August. So they did a little over 2 months in advance. And it's a bummer. But as you and I were talking, I couldn't see it happening, getting that many people together. Obviously canceled San Diego Comic-Con next month, July, and I'm not surprised by this. You're not either, right, my friend?
No, this was something I've been expecting for a while. Unfortunately, with the current situation globally with the COVID-19 and everything, I just kind of knew this was coming, and it did not surprise me when I saw the news release.
Yeah.
But what did surprise me, though, is they did go ahead and announce when the next Star Wars Celebration will be happening. And it's not when I expected it. Everyone kind of expected that, if they canceled it this year, they'd have it next year. Well, that's not happening. The next celebration is actually going to be August 18th through 21st of 2022.
Yeah.
So 2 years from now, so 2 years and 2 months from now, we're going to be getting another celebration. And this will be held where this one was supposed to be, at the Anaheim Convention Center in Anaheim, California.
Yeah. Do you think it was due to next summer being D23? I mean, they usually have that when, and is that usually July? Is that June, July? When do they have?
Correct.
Okay.
It's usually, I believe it's July, and that's probably, they didn't say that's why, but I assume that would be why, because I heard a while ago that they were setting Celebration up to alternate back and forth. One year we'd have Celebration, another year we'd have D23, and have it go back and forth, because D23, for those of you that aren't sure what D23 is, it's the Star Wars it's the Celebration Disney. It's basically Disney's version of Celebration for all of their fans and all of their properties. Star Wars has a presence there. Marvel does. Of course, it covers Pixar and all the Disney characters. It's a huge to-do. It's an incredible experience. But yeah, that D23 convention's happening next year. So it just, I don't know why I didn't even think of that. But yeah, 2022 is when our next celebration is going to be, which, for those of you who weren't going because you didn't have time to save, you now have plenty of time to save up for this trip to Anaheim.
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah. They've done 3 years between, celebrations before. I was thinking about, I went in 2012. This is before I knew you. I went to the one in Orlando, and then in 2015, 3 years later, I did go out to Anaheim and do 2 days of that one. So they've done 2 days. I was surprised after last celebration, last April, that they announced another one the very next year, meaning this year. I did not expect.
Mm-hmm.
Back-to-back years. But maybe it's like you said, they were trying to get it to alternate with D23. So if they did it this year, D23 next year in 21, and then Celebration again in 22. But I'd like to save up. I'd like to be there. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with tickets. I mean, you have something in our show notes here. I guess people can do refunds. You can
let me.
Once you want to do that, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that they can do right now. Let me just read you what they said about ticket transfers and refunds. According to the release, fans who are planning to attend Star Wars Celebration Anaheim this year, that we're planning on attending this year, may either transfer their current ticket purchase to the new event dates, which is the 2022 show. They can do that. They can receive a refund, or they can receive credit towards Star Wars Celebration merchandise. As a token of appreciation and thank you to all Star Wars 2020 fans who choose to transfer their tickets to the 2022 show, they're giving away a free Star Wars Celebration Stormtrooper pen for the transfer tickets. So apparently what they're doing is merchandise that was going to be sold at Celebration, which of course was already ordered and already received and in stock. They're going to be putting it on their Celebration in the Celebration online store and selling it to the people that were supposed to be there. So you do have an option of getting some of this merchandise. So you can either transfer your ticket to next Celebration 2022, you can get a refund, or you can just, instead of getting a refund or getting a ticket for next time, you can just roll it into quote unquote merchandise credit. And when the store opens up, just buy as much as you can with the ticket money. So there's plenty to do.
Those are some cool options, man. That could be cool to kind of get some of that merchandise for Celebration 2020, and it didn't occur. That's kind of, you kind of need to have some of those.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's going to be an awesome collectible to have. Hey, I got a Star Wars Celebration 2020 pin. Oh yeah, the convention that never happened. Someone needs to create a pen just like the Star Wars Celebration logo, 2020 Anaheim with the dates, and then just have a big red stamp across it just says canceled. But yeah, no. So all that merchandise will be coming available now. So some of the details on this. One of the big important, they have it flagged as important, you need to know is the ticket refund and merchandise credit request period will be open starting on June 22nd and will go through August 26th. So you need to, if you want a refund or if you want to transfer your ticket, what you paid for your ticket, into merchandise credit so you can order stuff, you have to do it between those dates. Okay. They also say if you booked a hotel through the official room block through the housing portal that they had, those reservations are automatically being canceled. If you went out and did it on your own, you want to make sure you go get it canceled on your own. But if you signed up through their booking portal that they had set up for Celebration, those reservations are automatically being canceled.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was huge news broke yesterday morning. That was, like I said, I'm not surprised by it. I was caught me off guard was the date for the next one in 2022, but it's all good. I like the fact that they're selling the merchandise. They're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to have to contact some of my friends who got tickets and can't go now and have them peruse the store for stuff for me now.
There you go, my friend. There you go.
Exactly. So that's the down news for the day. That's the downside. But we got two other great pieces of news yesterday to kind of lighten the blow of Celebration's cancellation. We are getting a brand new Star Wars video game. How about that? Star Wars Squadrons is going to be released. It is a space combat game. You'll either join the Galactic Empire after the Galactic Empire. Of course, this is set post Return of the Jedi, so you have the fledgling Galactic Empire, or you can choose to be a pilot with the newly formed New Republic. So this is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be available on PlayStation, Xbox One, and personal computer, PC, or you can play via virtual reality on the PlayStation 4 or on PC. This looks good. The trailer was released. I got it up on our website. Have you had a chance to watch the trailer?
I did. I watched it yesterday. You you're the one who, I was at work and you got me up to speed on all the news yesterday. And so then I bopped over to StarWars.com and was looking for the Star Wars Celebration, announcement, and saw Squadrons. I'm like, oh. And it's interesting because I'd heard some other Star Wars podcasters talking about a video game possibly called Maverick. And I wonder if that was just like a code name, because now I can see this, like Top Gun, Squadrons. So I don't know, maybe that's what this was. But I watched the video, that trailer, and and they said game engine footage used, and you watch it and you're like, oh my gosh, it's incredible. Again, I'm old enough that I played Pong on the Atari 2600. So when I see this stuff, you and I've talked before about Jedi Fallen Order and Battlefront 1 and 2. It's unreal, let alone like say Vader Immortal that you and I've also discussed on the show, previous episodes. It's incredible. It's incredible stuff. And hopefully this is another big hit like Jedi Fallen Order.
I would be surprised if it's not. I mean, this is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of Star Wars fans like playing these space battle games. I remember Rogue Squadron being huge growing up. X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. Those were huge PC games and video games growing up, that you were flying an X-Wing, you were flying TIE Fighters, and you were doing those space dogfights. And this literally looks like it's taking it to the next level. It's going to be a first-person 5-on-5 multiplayer game. From what I understand, there's also going to be a single player mission that you could do that basically picks up where the Battle of Endor ends and goes forward. But what I really liked about it, and I don't know if you saw this when you watched the trailer or if you saw people posting about it online, is one of the shots in the trailer shows basically a New Republic squad briefing room where you got pilots and some people standing around, and you see a Mon Calamari, and which you assume is Akbar, and standing next to Akbar. Did you see who was standing next to him?
No, tell me.
General Hera Syndulla.
Well,
Oh yes. Oh.
Oh wow. Okay.
I about lost my mind when I saw that, because I didn't catch it in the trailer. I caught it, somebody freeze framed it and posted it, and I saw it and I went, no way. And I went back and rewatched the trailer and went, oh my Lord. But yeah, it's that there's no doubt they don't say it's Hera, but there's no doubt in my mind it is Hera, because it's the same outfit and everything that she was wearing when they had her. You remember the Freemaker Lego show?
Yeah.
When she was in that, and she was playing General Syndulla, she had her jacket and the Rebel logo on it and everything. It's the same outfit. It looks just like her, just in non-Lego form. So, man, this is going to be great.
Well, think about it. You and I have seen Forces of Destiny. They had an episode where Hera, wasn't she arguing she was the better pilot than Han, and it was set on Endor, like after the Battle of Endor, I thought?
Absolutely.
Right. And then, of course, you and I have talked about Alphabet Squadron, set after Return of the Jedi. She is in Alphabet Squadron, as you and I know. And so this is interesting. And, here's another piece where we see her after Return of the Jedi.
Exactly. And this is going to be, it's the time frame's there. It's not an issue at all.
Right.
It's a very much time frame. We know she was at Endor based on the Forces of Destiny video. And that's where I came up with the hashtag Chopper Lives. Then of course we got, because Chopper was in that too. That's the only thing I really cared about at that point, was Chopper was alive at Endor. So I knew he wasn't getting blown up before the end of the series.
Right.
But you're right. We have her in all these things. And even in the finale of Rebels, it talks about her post the Battle of Endor and everything. So
Nice.
a lot of great stuff coming.
Nice, buddy. Nice.
So, plus, and you brought up Alphabet Squadron. This is not in our show notes, but the sequel for Alphabet Squadron is coming out soon.
Yes, Shadow.
Was it Shadowfall? I can't remember what. I'm trying to pull up my pre-order right now. Yes, Shadowfall, June 25th to next week.
Yeah.
Next week we get it. I'm stoked. They have updated my pre-order. It's arriving on the 25th. It'll be in my hands, and I'll be reading it. And that'll be fun. That'll give me something to look forward to. And I will say, and this is totally off subject, totally off the news, totally off everything we've been discussing, except for the fact we were talking about Shadowfall and it's a book. I did listen to my first audiobook. Finished it all the way through. It was Dooku Jedi Lost.
Yes.
That was really good.
Yeah.
I know I'm running behind, and that one's been out for a while now. But I've never done audiobooks. I like having the physical copy in my hand. I like being able to read. I like having it. But I got an email from Amazon since like we're Prime members, and they're like, you could get 2 free audiobooks just for signing up and trying. I'm like, okay, if they're free. So I signed up and to do a free trial for a month, and they gave me 2 free books and got to pick what they were. So I picked one, and it was first one I picked was Jedi Lost. It was Dooku, and man, that was something else.
Well, Gary and I were talking to you about it, and it was a year ago. Well, not a year ago, but last fall, I did the same thing. I was driving back from Michigan, and I had Dooku Jedi Lost on Audible. So it was the first one I had gotten on Audible, and like I had messaged you that it's a great start because you have a full cast in that, and they don't do that for all the different Star Wars books. Usually, the classic is Mark Thompson doing it, where he'll do different voices. And, he did that with Resistance Reborn, that novel by Rebecca Roanhorse. And he did all the voices. He does an excellent job. The neat thing about Dooku Jedi Lost is it is a full cast. So you have different actors doing the different roles. And it seemed like more expansive music and stuff like that. So I think that was I know it was great for me to start there with Dooku Jedi Lost. Excellent, and to get that backstory was so cool.
Oh yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then they have apparently there's another one coming out too here in a couple months that's going to have that full cast as well, based on Dr. Aphra.
Right, exactly. I think that they're doing that because I think probably how well Dooku Jedi Lost did. Obviously it costs more money for them to produce it like that, but and it's based on, I think that, I don't know, they did say what it is. I can't remember that. Kind of a certain number of comic books that she was in when she was first introduced in Darth Vader a while ago. So, I told you, and we've told our listeners that I'm trying to slowly but surely move over to Audible, and kind of like if I can keep myself busy with dishes or laundry or something, it's pretty good. Just setting and trying to focus on it's not the easiest thing, but if you get too busy, you do miss like a chunk and you have to hit rewind. But
you have that option.
But you do, right? And I'm listening to I Am C-3PO, the Inside Story, and of course it's narrated by Anthony Daniels, and I love hearing his voice and him tell the story versus someone else reading that. It's really cool. And so I've gotten through several chapters of that and really am enjoying that.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that out because I hear it's a good book as well. So, anyway, to try to get us back on task, I went squirrel. But the Star Wars Squadrons game will be available October 2nd. Of course, you can always go to our website, StarWarsReactions.com, watch the trailer, and there's about 8 different still images they released along with the poster, which is just beautiful. I mean, this game is going to be incredible. I'm loving it. So check it out at our website and look for the game October 2nd. Then the last bit of news, actually we got news over 2 days on this, so it's pretty exciting, is you remember the book that came out, I don't think it was about a couple of years ago. It was From a Certain Point of View. It was an anthology of stories, 40 stories from 40 different authors, basically taking place around A New Hope.
Yeah, I have it. Yeah, and it was Yeah, it was 2017, so the 40th anniversary, of A New Hope, and this one is again 40 stories honoring the 40 years of Empire.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So A Certain Point of View is getting a sequel. The Empire Strikes Back is coming. This, of course, will be released November 10th of this year, so a little later. And it's going to be a lot of fun, it looks like. A lot of great authors are going to be involved in it. Kevin Scott, who wrote Dooku, John Jackson Miller is going to be a part of it. Alexander Freed, Jason Fry, Christy Golden, Daniel Jose Older, are just a few of the names in there. Our pal Amy Ratcliffe is going to be is writing a story for it. It's great. We're looking at some great things, and they released all the names of all 40 authors who were involved, and those are just some of them. And they gave us a few synopsises of some of the stories as well. For example, Austin Walker is going to be writing a story that explores the unlikely partnership of bounty hunters Dengar and IG-88 as they pursue Han Solo. Then Hank Green chronicles the life of a naturalist caring for the Tauntauns on the frozen world of Hoth. The one I'm really looking forward to, and I'm skipping a couple, but Mark Oshiro recounts the Wampa's tragic tale of loss and survival. I'm looking forward to that one, man.
Yeah. Some of these things are, I've read a good portion of From a Certain Point of View, A New Hope. Some I really enjoyed. Some I'm like, I don't know. And I hope with this that because that first one, there were some that just went into some minutia and stuff like that. But it is interesting to get different points of view. But the ones that they showed and the authors they've revealed, I am looking forward to it. I'll definitely get it. I'm trying to decide. Again, I think I'll, kind of have the first one, so I kind of want all three in hardcover.
Of course.
But yeah, I'll definitely be getting this either Audible or hardcover. There's no question.
Exactly, and it's got me scratching my head right now because I'm sitting here looking at my bookcase, and I'm like, I know I have this book, but it's not there. So I don't know where my copy of the original From a Certain Point of View disappeared to.
Okay. Well, they can grow legs too.
Huh. That's going to bug me. That's going to bug me
the
now.
Rest of the show,
I'm just going to be, if I get distracted, I'm staring at my bookcase trying to figure out where it went.
Oh my gosh.
Huh. All right, focus, Aaron. Focus. Because I just squirreled myself on something that's missing. Huh. Yeah. Anyway, back to the story. So that book will be coming out November 10th. You can pre-order it now I'm sure it's up on Amazon for pre-order, which I probably need to go do. We had some great stories here. Just a couple of give you the rest of the ones that they gave us a synopsis on. Seth Dickinson is going to be writing one that interrogates the cost of serving the ruthless empire aboard the bridge of a doomed Imperial starship. Martha Wells will be writing and reveals the world of the Ugnaught clans who dwell in the depths of Cloud City. Then Tracy Dion delves into the dark heart of Dagobah's cave, where Luke confronts his terrifying vision. Yeah.
That sounds good.
So it's going to be good. There's a lot of great names in this list. Some that we haven't mentioned: Zoraida Cordova, Delilah S. Dawson, are all in here. It's going to be great. Beth Rivas, Gary Whitta, I mean, there's just so many great authors that's going to be a part of this project, so you don't want to miss out. You do want to get this book ready to go. And of course, you can get more details on a certain point of view, The Empire Strikes Back, on our website, of course, at StarWarsReactions.com. So news-wise, that takes care of all the news, but we do have some housekeeping stuff we want to take care of. As you noticed, we did not have an episode last week. It's actually been 2 weeks since our last episode. With going into summer and stuff being a little crazy in the world as it is right now, for the summer, David and I have talked, and we pretty much are going to be going bi-weekly through the summer. So every other week you'll get a new episode from us. And it's going to be just have fun like we always do. If something major important happens, we may slide in a short episode in. That if something happens that we need to discuss, we'll do that. But as of right now, you can count on every other week we'll be releasing a brand new episode through the summer. David's got some traveling going on. I'm going to have some traveling going on. There's some craziness going on that just needs to have our attention focused on and making things better for everybody. So we're going to do that. Right. So you'll get this episode, then our next episode will be 2 weeks from now. So there we go. And of course, we appreciate y'all listening to us, and hope you'll, I know it's a little disappointing not going weekly, but we will go back weekly after the summer. I know before we got Mandalorian season 2 coming up in October, and I know before then I would like to do a Mandalorian rewatch where we go through and review the first 8 episodes of the first season. So we're all geared up and ready to go for season 2. Excellent. So we got some plans going on. We'll be with y'all, and of course you can always keep in touch with us on social medias and through the website as well. So plenty of ways to get hold of us, but we still be releasing episodes just bi-weekly for the summer. So hope you will bear with us during that stretch. So all right, well, that takes care of all of our news, doesn't it? All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to take a quick break. And when we return, we will start our discussion of Star Wars Weekends. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here. And we have a certain topic we're discussing this week, and it's something that's very near and dear to our hearts. And that, of course, is Star Wars Weekends. For those of you who don't know what Star Wars Weekends is, hopefully you will learn a lot about what you missed. And for those of you who have attended Star Wars Weekends, I hope this is a nice, walk down memory lane, because 2020, we literally this past week celebrated the 5th anniversary of the final day of Star Wars Weekends, which was heartbreaking for me when I found out that was going to be the final day, which we didn't find out for a while afterwards. So let's get going. Star Wars Weekends is simple. It was a event that was held at Disney's Hollywood Studios in Orlando every year, usually the last couple weekends of May and the first couple weekends of June. It was usually Friday, Saturday, Sunday event each weekend, and it literally, they transformed the park into Star Wars Mecca, essentially. It was they had celebrity guests come in, they had stage shows, special fireworks event shows, special merchandise. It was phenomenal. A lot of people would say that sounds a lot like Celebration. Yes and no. I attended my first Celebration a couple years ago, the last one they had in Orlando. And Celebration is awesome. It's unique. It's huge. But there was something different about Star Wars weekends compared to Celebration. And a lot of it had to do with, honestly, it's going to seem kind of crazy to say, but a lot of it had to do with the Disney magic of it. So it's something that they did. I don't know. It's just the atmosphere around it was completely different than Celebration was. The Star Wars weekends started for the very first time back in 1997, and then was held for several years after that. They did the first one in 97. Then they took a break and started back up in 2000, did it 2000 and 2001. There was nothing in 2002. But then starting in 2003, up till when it ended in 2015, they did it every year, every summer. And it was crazy, crazy fun. They had Disney characters that you would used to seeing, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and them all dressed up as Star Wars characters. Mickey was a Jedi, Minnie was Leia, Donald was a Stormtrooper, Goofy was Darth Vader. It was just an incredible event that happened, and they full of stage shows and stuff. So let's start our discussion. When you think Star Wars weekends, David, what's the first thing that pops into your mind?
It's Anthony Daniels as C-3PO. I sent a bunch of pictures to you on Saturday night. Sent it to our Twitter account, Star Wars Reactions, and because that's the first thing when it was in 2011. My wife and my son and daughter, they, of course, that's 8 years ago now. No, forgive me, 9 years ago. I hadn't really had kept track of it. And my wife had wanted to kind of go down and just, all things worked out that we were walking into the park, and my daughter's in a stroller and my son is 9 years older, so he's 9 years younger. So he was about, I guess, 7. And I look up and I see Anthony Daniels. Now, my son doesn't know who Anthony Daniels is. He's just only seen the outside of the suit. And Anthony Daniels, leans over, and of course you've seen the picture, and if you have him there on the website and stuff, he just starts talking to Eli. And I'm just like, my mind is blown, because here is somebody I've watched since 1977. I was 8 years old. And to see him strike up that conversation with Eli was so nice. Jet was over to the left doing an interview, but here's Anthony Daniels at a break, leaning over and talking to Eli. And then Anthony Daniels looks straight at me, and I said, "It's really nice to meet you." And he looks at me and he says, "Well, it's really nice to meet you." And I was hooked. And of course, later that day, Bob Iger and of course George Lucas himself are there for the reopening of Star Tours.
That sounds like quite the experience.
It was just, again, how do you, I don't know that as I'm driving to Hollywood Studios that day that, that would happen. I mean, it was just incredible. It just, I kind of think about like what you and I have talked about, like what kind of rekindles you, because really, and a lot of people out there know this, when you're raising kids, you're so into that. And I had really kind of hadn't been into Star Wars a ton, just because I was in child rearing mode. And so for that to happen, it just really got me going again. And of course, it was so fortuitous that I ended up, meeting you in 2015 at Star Wars weekend. So just all great memories for me, bud.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely sounds like it. I know for me, it's a ton of great memories, from making friends to meeting celebrities to going to shows, laughing, crying, having a blast, and really having my fandom reawaken. Because if it wasn't for Star Wars weekends, I would not be sitting here podcasting about Star Wars with you.
Oh, me either.
So, because it was, not only is it the event that brought us together where we met for the first time, but my first trip to Star Wars weekends in 2012, I could have cared less about Star Wars. I was just going because my friend invited me. I mean, it's as simple as that. So it definitely has a very special place in my heart. There were a lot of things that happened during Star Wars weekends. So it wasn't just, throwing up a bunch of Star Wars signs and doing stuff, which they did. They played a lot of John Williams music. Walking up to the gates of Hollywood Studios and hearing that John Williams music playing is just, it gives you chills. There was a lot of stuff they did. They had celebrities there and they signed autographs for free. Their autograph signings were all free. The only catch is you had to be there early enough to get a ticket. They were all ticketed. So if you didn't get a ticket, chances are you weren't getting an autograph, because they did do a standby, but very rarely did you see standby ever get taken. I think in all the years I went and did standby, I only got taken on standby 3 times from 2012 through 2015. 2 of those times were because it was raining and there was nobody in the park and nobody in line. So literally they were just like, yeah, sure, come on up. Right. The other time was just because I waited patiently through 3 different rounds with one person, and finally his third autograph session, they took standbys, and I was like the second person in line, so I got lucky.
Yeah,
but
I had one time where standby worked, and it was with Ashley Eckstein, and it was in 2012. Park, like you said, it was I remember it being rainy and overcast, and everyone had pretty much taken off. But she finished up signing everybody's. I stayed. I thought, she might be done and not do it, but she ended up. It was really cool. She signed some stuff for Lena, and then as I was walking out, I saw her husband, David Eckstein, World Series MVP. Shook his hand and got a chance to talk to him a little bit. And he was super nice, and left the park because everything was pretty much shut down. But she stayed till she signed everybody's stuff. Incredible.
Oh, absolutely. See, ironically for me, the one I did standby with was ironically Matt Lanter. So you got Ahsoka, I got Anakin.
Yes.
Yes. But yeah, no, I had the only reason I did standby is because I had a ticket for Matt Lanter that day, and it all of a sudden about 30 minutes before autograph time. And if you've ever been to Hollywood Studios, there's a big lake right there in the middle of the park, and they set little tents up around the lake, and that's where the autograph sessions would be. They'd go out, sit in the tent, and you'd stand in line with the ticket, and they'd talk to you for a minute, sign, take a picture, and you'd go. Well, Florida has this thing called sideways rain.
I thought you were going to say humidity.
Oh, no. Well, the humidity that day was 100%, because the rain was coming down sideways. And it was the darkest I had ever seen Star Wars weekends. I mean, it literally went from beautiful and sunshine to completely black skies, rain coming down sideways, flash flooding. I mean, half the sidewalks were flooded. It was crazy storm that day. And my ticket time for Matt Lanter, I rushed over there and I was drenched. I mean, I rushed from Darth Maul, which was actually, I've mentioned that in the opening and haven't said what that is yet, but it just was one of the stores there. I'll tell you more about it in a little bit. But rushed from Darth Maul across the park to where they were going to be signing, and they had moved the signing into this little bitty walkway between two buildings, which was covered. It was where the American Idol building was, and this little walkway between it where the studio exits. And it was dark. It was wet. Everybody was soaking wet. They crammed like all the Clone Wars cast was crammed in that little walkway to do their signings. And it was, honestly, it was probably the worst experience I had ever had. It was soaking. They were literally, getting people turned in and out, in and out, in and out. And I went in, I got my autograph, and I got out and finally got somewhere I could, because as soon as you got your autograph and you put it away, they pushed you out into the rain because they needed you out of the way. So I got pushed out in the rain, made it somewhere dry, which I believe was Backlot Express, because Backlot Express, which is one of the restaurants there, was my biggest hangout. I hung out a lot at Backlot. But I checked the photo, and it was so dark, and the flash didn't go off, so you couldn't see anything. So I wanted the picture. So I stood through his other two autograph sessions, which by that time, thank God, it had stopped raining. So I had time to dry off, but stood through those two autographs just to get a picture that actually turned out.
Yeah. And just side note, talking about sideways rain, I always thought about that, around Echo Lake, where they would set up those tents and they would have a fan blowing on the celebrity. I remember looking at John Ratzenberger. He was there one year signing autographs, and it was so hot. Because again, it's end of May, beginning of June, and this isn't like up north where May and June can be relatively cooler. I've had many of those growing up in the Midwest. Asked Dan Z and Corey Clubb about that, and Tom Gross. But it was so hot, and I remember looking at John Ratzenberger. I remember looking at Billy D. Williams, and this is years ago, not when Billy was in his 80s, but his 70s, and he was just sweating. Looking at Peter Mayhew, of course, Ashley seemed to do fine. Vanessa Marshall, some of these other people, but with some of those actors and actresses, you're like, oh my God, this is too hot. And the people you stand in line, they eventually moved it, as you and I know, over to, gosh, how do I describe it? You and I know.
It's a recording studio.
Yeah, to the recording studio in there, kind of across from that ABC commissary. Yeah. And I remember where you enter in there, and they had, that's where, I got to see Tia Serkar, Steve Bloom, Vanessa Marshall, and Jeremy Bulloch in 2015. And so that was really nice. You were outside a bit, you were covered, but they had the fans, and then when you went inside, and they kind of progressed you along, and it was nice, and all of them were in air conditioning, and so that was a good call.
It really was. It was a great call for them to move that, and for those of you to go into a little bit more detail on these autographs. So we keep talking about every weekend they had different celebrities that came in, and you could get there early, and they had so many autograph tickets. Basically, they looked like the old Fast Pass tickets that you could get and it would have a certain time stamped on it, and you would come back during that time, and you would get to meet the celebrity. They had their own pictures that they had specially printed for Star Wars weekends that they would autograph for you, or if you brought something in, they'd autograph it for you. And that was it. And they talk to you for a minute, you take a picture, and you go. And depending on how big of a celebrity you were meeting would depend on how early you got there. And I'm not talking just, like voice actors. I mean, David mentioned some who were there uh, from the movies with Anthony Daniels, and Warwick Davis was a regular. Jeremy Bulloch came several times. Carrie Fisher came twice. I mean, there's a lot of fun people that came. Jake Lloyd was there, Daniel Logan, Peter Mayhew. There were a couple that came that didn't do autograph sessions. Frank Oz, Ian McDermott, Mark Hamill were three that came in the last year or two that were incredible to meet and be a part of them. I think they all came in 2015, was it? Yeah, 2015. When did Mark Hamill come?
I think he came in 14. Yeah, interviewed him and said, "Are you working on anything?" And of course, the following year, The Force Awakens comes out. Yeah. I will add to that, I think, one other one that I remember, just like you, Mark Hamill didn't sign. Frank Oz, I remember that. He was the 5th weekend of 2015. Mm-hmm. I was not able to go to that.
That was incredible. I was there for that.
Yeah. I think another one that did not sign was Ahmed Best.
Ahmed Best signed.
Did he sign?
Yes, I did.
Oh, well, thank you for clarifying that. Okay.
He did sign because I met him the year he came. I'm trying to remember what year he came. He came in 2014. He did sign. But you had to be there super early to get his autograph ticket for that. So, I mean, Dave Filoni came once, or actually came a couple times, actually. So it was a huge to-do with some of these celebrities, and like I said, they were all free. So you would just go, as long as you got a ticket, they would sign for you. And depending on who it was, most of them would talk to you for a minute and get you off. I know you mentioned John Ratzenberger. His was sign, picture, kicked out of the tent. Whereas you get somebody like James Arnold Taylor or Ashley Eckstein, they'd sit there and talk to you till the cast members were like, okay, they really need to go. You got 30 other people standing here and you've been talking to them for 10 minutes. And the cast members start rushing them out. But you met so many incredible people, and you got to see people. Some of these people were just so down to earth. It was incredible. Billy D. Williams, I met Billy D. And Sam, I met Sam Witwer, Captain Tabor. Steve Sansweet was there a couple years. And I got to meet Steve Sansweet, of course, from Rancho Obi-Wan. These are just people who just have these were their jobs, but they have a passion. Ray Park was incredible to meet as well. Tim Rose, who the puppeteer for Akbar. It was just incredible, some of the names that they got to come through and that you would get to meet. And a lot of them have, Disney connections. Jim Cummings, Hondo Ohnaka. He's also Winnie the Pooh. So I remember the weekend Jim Cummings came and the park was full of, not Star Wars fans, actual Disney fans that were coming to meet Winnie the Pooh. It's crazy.
Well, Winnie the Pooh and Tigger too. Yeah. Well, and I would add to that, a couple things. One, I remember Andy Seacombe. He was the voice of Watto. I remember seeing him in Stars of the Saga, one of the shows that James Arnold Taylor would do. Also, Silas Carson. He did Kiadi Mundi. He was also a pilot with Jeremy Bulloch. I'm trying to think, would that be in episode 1? I'm trying to remember. I think episode 1, Silas Carson, he's in the, he lands and then the ship gets blown up as Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are on the Trade Federation ship. And remember, that ship gets blown up, and I think he's on it, Silas Carson. But one of the questions you had asked in our show notes was, what's the earliest you got there? And I've been there sometimes as early as like 3:30 in the morning. And one nice thing about that is you come in, you park at the very front, and you didn't pay the $20 or $25 parking fee that day. I remember, taking my kids down there and them being troopers about that. And we'd each get a wristband and, like you said, the fast pass ticket. And we you got three wristbands, you get three autographs, and something like you were saying is every celebrity had like kind of a photo card that was just bigger than a postcard, but it had Disney's Hollywood Studios, it had their name and then their character and stuff. And so we would get those signed. I would bring, like for the Rebels, I brought a book down, Adam Bray's book, the Star Wars Rebels visual guide, and had Steve Bloom sign it. Like I said, T.S. Surkar, and Vanessa Marshall. I wish I had Freddie Prinze Jr. and Taylor Gray, but maybe at some point I can get them to sign it at a future celebration, perhaps. But yeah, it was so awesome, the number of people. But like you said, you would get there in the morning. I was never the first in line. There's people who stayed overnight. There's some people who got there at 1 or 2. And you could tell by the length of the line. I remember many times I would get there at 3:30 or 4 in the morning, particularly in 2015, and Ray Park's line was so long. I remember, I don't know if you remember this, Aaron, but like as Star Wars fans, you would look and you'd have to kind of count and figure out, oh, wait a minute, no, I'm not getting in that line because there's no, I won't get a wristband and a ticket. You just kind of do a rough count, and then you bop into another line, and you're guaranteed to get an autograph and see that person. So you kind of learn how to do it, but you'd sit there and you'd get to meet Star Wars fans, and you'd see so many people cosplaying and lightsabers, and most of the time, I'd see, young couples in their 20s, they would have a little audio visual set up and they'd be watching one of the movies, I guess then it would be one of the 6 movies, one of the 6 movies. We didn't have 7, 8, 9 or Rogue One or Solo. And so it was really neat. And that's when you and I were tweeting, and I was in the same line as you, and kind of, I was looking down to see where you were, and you were looking up, and then we went from there in 2015. And so, yeah, meeting very early. Those were the hardcore Star Wars fans there that early. Do you remember what was your earliest you got there?
Well, I got you beat. My earliest was 2 a.m.
Oh, who were you in line for? Do you remember or not?
Billy D. Williams.
Oh, yeah.
And here's the catch. I got there at 2 a.m. in the morning. Now, keep in mind, they weren't passing out tickets till 7 a.m.
Right.
And then the park opened at 8.
Right.
But I got there at 2 a.m. And if you've ever been I don't know if, I know, David, you'll know what I'm talking about. Just past the security checkpoint where they do the bag check, they have that big fountain and planner thing, just a big rotunda planner area out there. You know where I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And then the sidewalk kind of curves around away from the parking lot toward the boat ramps where you can take the boat and go to some of the resorts or another park.
Yeah,
you know that?
Yeah, you can even go to Epcot from there. Yeah.
I got there at 2 a.m. and the line was already past the rotunda and starting to curve around toward that boat ramp.
Yeah.
There were that many people already in line. Yeah, it was nothing to have people just throw a tent up and camp out. I can't tell you how many people I saw do that. I remember one time getting there and somebody had a card table set up and they had their folding chairs and they were sitting there and they were playing the X-Wing miniatures game.
Right.
While they waited, right. Why not?
Yeah.
You're there, you get there early enough. You got several hours to wait. And that's what you did. And what was, and what, when I really, and people are asking, why would you stand in line that long? Why would you do that? My wife asked me that day after day after day, why are you going so early? And it's not because, I don't like sleep. I love sleep. I slept when Star Wars weekends would end, I'd sleep for a week. Because I literally did not sleep at all when it was going. But one of the greatest things about Star Wars weekends was the people.
Yeah.
Everybody that was there, you were already connected to, whether you knew them or not. You were connected to them because they were Star Wars fans.
Well, and let me piggyback on what you said, because you mentioned this a little bit ago in the podcast here, which is the feel of Star Wars weekends, and it is different than Celebration. Celebration is, you and I have done that together. It's a monstrosity. It is huge, and it is awesome. The thing about Star Wars weekends, it was so cool to, I spent a lot of time back at the Premiere Theater watching all the shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about those. But it was exactly what you said. It was a smaller number. Now, look, there were plenty of people in the park when I walked down Hollywood Boulevard, and I'm walking and looking at the Tower of Terror. If I was going over the Rock and Roller Coaster, if I was in front of the Chinese Theater, right, where the Great Movie Ride was. If you were even walking over towards Indiana Jones or around Echo Lake, I would see moms and dads from America, people from Britain, from all over the world, and they would see us Star Wars fans with all of our shirts and hats and poster tubes and pictures and all that. And you could tell clearly a lot of them did not know it was Star Wars weekends. They planned their trips, and they got there and like, holy mackerel, what's going on with Star Wars? And of course, all of us Star Wars fans know, well, it's Star Wars weekends in May and June. And you'd see them, they're pleasantly surprised and stuff like that. So not everyone in the park was there for that. And so it was a more intimate setting. In fact, you and I know at the Premiere Theater, we had, how do I say, Gian, right? He sent us,
Yep.
He has a lot of videos on YouTube of Star Wars weekends. And I remember seeing him there, videotaping a lot of that. He was there at Premiere Theater. You and I have been there, and it wasn't a huge theater where they did all the shows, where James Arnold Taylor was the celebrity guest host, and so was Ashley Eckstein. But towards the end, I think in 14 and 15, I know definitely in 15, they moved from the Premiere Theater over to, was it Theater of the Stars, the one where they hold the Beauty of the Beast show.
Yes.
And that's huge. And, and I remember when it was going to that size that you're like, oh my God. If you didn't get there, you weren't going to get in there. And there was way more seats in that theater. That's again, down at the end where there's, Tower of Terror and stuff like that. If you didn't get there, you weren't going to get in. I remember seeing Ian McDermott there with Amy Allen, who played Aayla Secura in episode 3. And I remember sitting at the very, very back, just because timing wise, we were at something else, my wife and my kids, and we got over there. We still got in because I wanted to see Ian McDermott, and it was so cool to see him live. Fortunately, he had some big screens up, but that's when you knew it was really growing, and the feel was changing a little bit. I seemed like I remember one time sitting on one side, and I remember seeing you over on the other. We were texting each other, and so we just kind of got in and got down as close as we could and stuff. But yeah, the feel was changing a little bit, but it had just a really neat, intimate feel, particularly I felt when they had the shows over at the Premiere Theater.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, definitely. The shows were something else. It did have that small, intimate feel to it. And you're right there at the end in 2015, the last year they did it. They did change things around where it was to accommodate. They were doing it to accommodate larger crowds. And basically, it was you had to pretty much pick if you wanted to do an autograph session or go to a show, because up until that point, everything was, you have your autograph sessions and you have your show times, and they never overlapped. But they were to squeeze in as much as they could. They were starting to overlap it, so you could go get your autograph session here, but if you wanted to go see the interview with Frank Oz, you had to skip the interview session. So, it was that last year they switched it up a bit, which made it a lot more difficult to see everything, do everything you wanted to. But it was still an incredible experience in and of itself. So, well, I want to talk about the shows that they had, because the shows were huge and a part of Star Wars weekends. Before we do, though, we're going to take another break, and we will be back in a few moments. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here. We are talking Star Wars weekends and all of these tremendous memories that we have. And David basically just opened us and segued us into the next topic I want to talk about, which was all the shows that they held during this event, because there were a ton of shows and stuff going on to be a part of. And they were, whether it was interview shows interviewing the celebrities that were there, or whether it was fireworks shows, they had everything, and it was all Star Wars themed and Star Wars based. But probably my favorite part of the shows was the pre-show. Every year they had a skit with Stormtroopers, and it was probably the funniest thing you could ever watch. Whether they're talking about music, they're talking about the missing wizard's hat that when they tore it down, these guys just kept you rolling. And they were there basically just to fill the time, because they'd start opening up and filling in, and everybody'd get in there, and you'd sit there a half hour waiting on the show to start. But these guys were the filler. They 10 minute skit, and it was priceless. I mean, they're hysterical, and they're all on YouTube. You could pull them up and watch some of them. You'll laugh your butt off. But they're great. They're incredible. Do you remember these Stormtrooper skits?
Absolutely. And my kids loved them so much. We made sure to always get there. Again, at the Premier Theater is where I really remember those happening. They were so good, and I remember them talking about, how they got beat by Ewoks, and and they were saying, you try to shoot those little things through little eye holes like this, and just so quick, so funny, and they'd play different music and different skits and stuff like that, like you said, and it was so good. I remember they even had some pyrotechnics in a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like a couple of Ewoks came out, shot something at him. One Stormtrooper, it seemed like he got hit and blew up, and they kind of threw some white pieces of
armor
on it, right? It was so good. It was funny. I do need to go back and watch those, because I do remember enjoying those. You gotta be there before James Arnold Taylor hit the stage, but those guys were a great warm up.
Oh, they were. It was a great warm up, and there are several skits online you can watch. I know our friend Gian, he has some of them up on his YouTube page. But I mean, they changed every year, and they were just a lot of fun. It was something that you could sit down and just laugh and have fun. And it was all family friendly. It was great. It is a great family experience, and I think that was one thing we talked about. The atmosphere of Star Wars weekends earlier is so family friendly. It's crazy, because it's Disney. I mean, Celebration's family friendly, but but Disney is a different type of family friendly, and it was crazy. It was just awesome. But let's look at some of these shows that they had. One of the big things they had during the day was the Legends of the Force Motorcade. Now, this is one that came straight down the main street there at Hollywood Studios. Loop around back when they had the big Wizards Mickey hat from Fantasia there, which they eventually tore down. It's not there now. But it would go there. They'd have a stage set up. The celebrities would be riding in the back of convertibles and waving it to you as they go down the street. They'd have members of the Rebel Legion and the 501st flanking the cars, marching. So you'd have hundreds of stormtroopers and Rebel pilots and TIE pilots and clone troopers just marching down this main drag of Hollywood Studios. And it was just a sight to behold. It was fun to watch. It's fun to see, and it happened every day that during Star Wars weekends. And it was great. It was great. You see them, they all go up, get to the stage and do their little thing on stage, sing a little song, do a little dance, have fun, and then they get back in the cars and they drive back down the street. It was great. Now, I don't know about you. I very rarely watched the Motorcade. I think I watched it once. But I would watch it to see all the troopers and costumes, because 501st Rebel Legion were there. I had this perfect little hiding spot right outside Backlot Express. It was on the side of the building. It was a little exit that comes out in between Backlot Express and the Rebel bunker where they were doing the Jedi training.
Yes, right there. Yes.
And I would hang out there because once they hit the stage, the celebrities would stop and get out and go in that way. But the 501st members in the Rebel Legion, they would keep marching, and they would march straight through between and down that little stretch between Backlot Express and the bunker out, and there was a big door there, garage door. They'd open up, and they would march out. That's how they would get out of the park. They would march back out through there. And I would just sit there day after day and just watch these guys come by and see their armor, the details, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, they had their own Emperor Palpatine. They had not just clone characters. They had oh my gosh, sand people. They had tons of sand people and Jawas. I mean, it was great to see. And it wasn't just from the movies or the Clone Wars. They had some people from the video games. They had Starkiller in it. It was great. I mean, they had somebody dressed up like Starkiller from Force Unleashed. I mean, and it was great. And I think one of my biggest memories about the Motorcade and the parade was one day I'm sitting there outside of Backlot Express watching it, and I'm watching him come by, and all of a sudden I look up, and leading a group of stormtroopers is an older guy in a gray Imperial uniform. And I'm sitting there looking at him like, that dude looks familiar. And I'm thinking, and then it hits me. It was Steve Sansweet. He was marching with the 501st.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What are your memories of the Motorcade or the parade?
Well, just like you said, after seeing it, I'm like, okay, I've got a feel for this. And again, as Star Wars fans, you gotta kind of plan your day out and figure out what you want to do. And so, after doing it, in 2011, 12, 13, 14, then 15, what I really learned was that get there early, like you and I did. My son and I, my daughter, and myself would get our wristbands with a fast pass to the person we want to get the autograph, the Star Wars celebrity. And then when the park opened, we would actually make a beeline back for the line to get into the premiere theater, which was back by Muppets 3D. And so we would just get back there. And real neat story in 2012. Okay, so 2011, we get to see, Anthony Daniels up close and talk to him. Then in 2012, Ray Park was there. He was there a lot of Star Wars weekends, which was great. I had in 2000, I think I could look at the programs again for 11 and 12, had seen that, another show that you have listed here in our show notes is A Visit to the Mall. It was a Ray Park stage show that he did with James Arnold Taylor, where they would invite a lot of kids up onto the stage, a certain number. And I was like, man, it would be so cool to get Eli and Lena up there on stage with Ray Park, with Darth Maul himself. So I was standing in line, again, just waiting for several hours for the first show, which was usually Beyond the Force, another one you have listed there, kind of behind the scenes show for the Clone Wars and Rebels. So I'm standing there, and there was this couple that I had gotten to know over the years who were retired, and they worked at Hollywood Studios, real sweet people. And they saw Eli with me, and they said, hey, do you want, your son to be in the show, be up on stage with Ray Park? I'm like, yes. And so it was so nice of them. And they handed me two things. I said, I have a daughter too. And they knew that. And they gave me these two special color wristbands. And so got those. In the meantime, my wife had walked over with my daughter. They just wanted to walk around. They didn't want to just stand there for an hour or two. And that's fine. So they started walking around the park. Well, they come back, and my daughter had a little stuffed Chewbacca, that we brought that day. She had it, and she was just wanting to walk around. She loves Chewie. So one of the Hollywood Studios staff members saw Lena holding Chewbacca. And again, a lot of people are there not for Star Wars weekends. Obviously, they can see that my wife and daughter are there, or we're here for Star Wars weekend. And the woman went up to my wife and daughter and said, well, do you want to be in the motorcade? And my wife's like, yeah, absolutely. And so my wife walks back and she shows me the two wristbands for that. And I've got two wristbands for Eli and Lena to be up on the stage show. So it was beyond cool. They were up on the stage show first. I believe, or would that be, well, maybe, maybe, or maybe later. No, later on was the Visit to the Mall. And so we watch a couple shows, and then I have Lena with me, and we're walking back just kind of where you were describing, like by Indiana Jones, and then you go back, and you're going to go back to where the motorcade starts. And Lena is little at this time, so I have her in my arm, and she sees like all these Star Wars characters. One is Kit Fisto, because he's walking in the parade as well. And Lena saw his eyes, and she was kind of scared. I said, Lena, that's okay. Jedi Master Kit Fisto's a good guy. And so she was a little scared, and so Eli was fine. And we get back there, and like you saw where all the 501st was ending over there by Backlot Express and the big AT-AT Walker and the Rebel Bunker, I'm over in the start area, just standing there with Eli and Lena, and they hand out Jedi robes to Eli and Lena, and then we just start walking. I see all the 501st, I see all the cars, lined up, and so it was really neat to kind of see behind the scenes of the motorcade over there, seeing the 501st with all their boxes, their equipment, getting dressed, all the troopers, oh my God, and the clone troopers, and then there's a guy there's Wolf. It was just incredible. All these guys, and then like I said, the celebrities were all getting in their cars. Saw Ashley and James and all them, and then we walked, and I remember Ray Park was in it too, and it was just incredible. And so on the same day, Eli and Lena were on stage with Ray Park, as well as James Arnold Taylor and his daughter Lydia. She was much littler than them. They were also in the motorcade where we walked right down Main Street. I carried Lena the entire way, so it worked out really well. We walked towards the stage, and then that's where we veered off to the right. They asked all of us parents with the kids veer off to the right, and then all the celebrities like Ray Park and James Arnold Taylor, Ashley Eckstein, they would go up on the stage and, like you said, kind of say hi and get the day going and stuff like that. So it was an incredible double whammy that was just awesome.
Oh man, some of that I did not know. I knew he had done the Ray Park thing. You had told me that, but I didn't realize they had done the Motorcade as well.
Yeah. I know you and I hadn't talked about that. I didn't thought about that a lot. But that was another neat experience for them to be able to do it. And like you said, for the majority of time, I knew that the motorcade is drive up, drive back, and I just very much wanted to have the really down low close seats at the Premier Theater. With Eli and Lena. And so again, you're there, and I see Jad up close, Ashley, D. Bradley Baker, Kat Tabor, Sam Witwer, you name it. Just being down low there was really cool at the Premier Theater.
Very cool, very cool. Love it. You mentioned a couple of the other shows there that we want to talk about too. You mentioned the Visit to the Mall, which is the Ray Park show, which basically he got up there and did martial arts. He brought kids up there, taught them how to do some of the Darth Maul moves. An incredible show, and he's an incredible guy to talk to and visit with, and to see him interact like that. He loves his fans. It's obvious if you ever follow him on social media. He does love his fans.
Oh yeah.
So it was only natural that he hosted a show like that. Beyond the Force was probably one of the more entertaining shows for Star Wars weekends for me. This was usually focused on the Clone Wars or on later on Star Wars Rebels. This is where any of the voice actors that were in for the weekend, they would come out and they would visit, and they would talk about the show. They would talk about their experience on the show. They would usually, it was between seasons, so you got a sneak peek of what was to come. It was a fun thing, and you got to see great things. The show morphed a little bit as it went on. A lot of time, I know for a couple of years they actually had it where they set up basically a recording studio and showed you what it was like recording the voices and stuff. They would bring volunteers up from the audience and do stuff that way. And yeah, if I remember correctly, Eli got picked for that, didn't he?
Exactly. Yeah. That was where, each week, and in fact, you and I were watching some of Gian's videos. I was watching the one with Jim Cummings. It was the exact same setup for Eli, but Tom Kane was there, same year, 2013. And they did a skit, where Ashley's up there. Eli was standing right next to Ashley. I sent you the picture. Tom Kane is there where Jim Cummings was. And then, of course, James Arnold Taylor. And they would run through this little skit where Obi-Wan and Ahsoka have a mission to go to Jabba's palace. And it was just so neat. And again, I remember seeing that earlier in 2013. And I thought, gosh, if Eli could get up there, it'd be kind of cool. And, James would just randomly pick people. And so, again, we were down low, and James has got to get through this and do it. And so he looks at Eli and says, "What does a Jawa say?" And Eli says, "Utini." He goes, "You're good." Boom. And Eli was on stage, and so that was a really neat thing. And of course, I videotaped that and got it put on DVD. But that was a really neat thing about that. And the thing that they did, and I remember seeing it earlier, in May, and Eli did his in June. I saw James Arnold Taylor hand out these black boxes with Star Wars on them. I remember being at Backlot Express one time, and Ova and I look over, and I said, "I remember that person being up on stage," and I looked, and I asked him, "What did James hand you?" And the young girl opened the box. She was there with her parents, and it was these like a Star Wars medallion, but on the box it's signed. And so for Eli's, it's signed by James, Tom Kane, and Ashley Eckstein. So
wow.
Yeah, and so it's got their autographs, and so I'm guessing the video that I watched last night that like I said, Gian had sent over, that the person I saw James hand out a box to they have 3, younger people up there. And I'm guessing it was signed by James, Ashley, and Jim Cummings. So that was, a really neat experience for Eli to be up there. And Ashley, like when you watch the video, she's so, just like in that Jim Cummings video, she's sitting there, coaching up the young child next to her. It happened to be James's daughter, Lydia, in that one. And she, Ashley was so nice to Eli, coached him up on how to read his lines, and just smiling and encouraging. And that's, like you said, how do you beat that? I mean, what an experience, But yeah, the Beyond the Force, that was always a great show. And you and I remember being there in 2014. That's when they started to have the Rebels cast, and I remember thinking, I don't know any of these people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Remember, Tia Serkar was there. Steve Bloom came. Vanessa Marshall, and I'm like, what's this show about?
Yep.
But yeah, that was the first year that those voice actors came.
Yeah, the whole cast came except for Prince, Vanessa, Steve, Taylor Gray, Tia Serkar. They were all there in 14 and in 15. So yeah, that's one thing I always enjoyed was I met the majority of the Rebels cast before the show even aired.
Right.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
One of my favorite memories from Beyond the Force, and I was actually watching it. Our friend Gion's got the video up on his YouTube page, and I was actually in that. I was actually in that show. I remember watching it live, sitting there watching it, and dying through the whole thing. It was the same setup. It was 2013, just like you described that they did with Eli. They were pulling people out of the crowd. It was Ashley and James, of course, they were hosting. And the voice acting guest that day was Sam Witwer. Of course, Sam Witwer, Darth Maul in Clone Wars and in Rebels. He did the son in the Mortis trilogy. Of course, he was Starkiller in Force Unleashed. But he was up there, and James and Ashley, and they pull people out of the crowd. And the person James picks is Tom Wilson from Back to the Future. Biff. If you don't know Tom Wilson, he played Biff in the Back to the Future movies, which it was like David and Goliath, essentially, is what it was. You have James, who's the nicest guy, but he's a small guy. Then you got Tom Wilson, who just literally towered above him. And apparently they're great friends, come to find out. But he was in town, and James invited him over, and he pulls him up on stage. And the show was probably the funniest Beyond the Force show I had ever seen. Because they talk about sound effects and everything, and James is out, and he goes, you just act like you're turning on a lightsaber, and he'll throw in the sound effect, and he flicked his wrist like he was turning on a lightsaber, and you got the sound. So Witwer comes out, and he does it, except for he does the double bladed thing for Maul, and they're acting it all out, and then of course Witwer turns to, of course, James, who plays Obi-Wan in the show, and kind of is like staring him down like he's going to take him on in a lightsaber battle. And James just calls out big old Tom Wilson, who walks up, and of course Tom Wilson towers over Sam Witwer as well. It's just the funniest thing, because Sam just kind of looks up at him, and then he goes into a Michael J. Fox impression. He's like, "Hey, Biff, what you doing? Nothing about." or not a Michael J. Fox. It was a Crispin Glover impression of the dad from Back to the Future. Hey, Biff, no problem, Biff. It was great. It was great. The whole show was just funny.
Yeah, I wish I would have been there live. The picture you posted was really cool of Tom Wilson and Sam Witwer. Very cool, very funny, and yeah, those shows had such a neat feel to them, and God, I just to sit down and watch. It'd be interesting to watch them evolve. When James took over his hosting duties and as he went through, he had a lot of fun with that, and a lot of, like I said, audience participation. Where once in 2015, once those shows were over at the Beauty and the Beast Theater, again, huge. They didn't do that, right? I don't recall people going up on stage.
No, by that time it had changed.
Yes.
By that point, Clone Wars was gone. It was Rebels. So Ashley and James really had nothing to do with it. So it became more of an interview type thing. There were 2 stools and a big screen, and they would sit there and talk about Rebels and have pictures going on the screen behind them. Then they'd play a clip of the show.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what it morphed into. That show probably morphed more than that. Well, that show had multiple lives.
Right.
It morphed when Clone Wars ended. So,
yeah.
Now, the other big show that they did was Stars of the Saga. Now, this is where they brought in, because not only bring in voice actors, they brought in actors from the movies. This is where they actually did, it was kind of almost like a David Letterman type show or Jay Leno type show, or that one. Gosh, I just dated myself. Who's even doing those late night shows now?
We got Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel.
There you go. It was kind of like those guys. Man, I just dated myself big time. At least I didn't say Johnny Carson. Anywho.
Unfortunately, I can say Johnny Carson. Oh, boy.
Well, I remember watching Johnny Carson.
I watched Johnny a lot. Yeah.
Here's Johnny.
Yeah.
Anyway. Squirrel.
Yeah. The Stars of Saga was really cool.
It really was, and they'd have the couch there. Everybody sit down and they'd talk, and James would host behind a desk like you would see on those late night shows, and that was just a fun event. They'd talk about their careers, their experiences in Star Wars, and it was just a nice interview setting for them, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that show as well, not as much as I enjoyed Beyond the Force, but that was a fun show because that you learned a lot about the people who were playing your characters, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember seeing Jeremy Bulloch up there several times, and it was neat to hear him talk about the original Boba Fett costume, some of the issues he had with it, some of the things like around the knee that wanted to bust off and stuff like that. I remember seeing, again, Andy Seacombe, who did Watto, and man, when he busted into Watto's voice, people just loved it. I remember seeing Jake Lloyd up there on stage being interviewed. Who else? Obviously, I wasn't there for Mark Hamill. That's what he did, that Stars of the Saga show there. I remember seeing Billy D. Williams up there, Warwick Davis. Like you said, the kind of the whole crew of people, in those movies. I remember even seeing, gosh, I'm blanking on her name, but she played Aura Singh in The Phantom Menace. She was up there, and it seemed like I remember James interviewing her there. It would have been, Stars of, not Beyond the Force. Yeah, Stars of the Saga. So all kinds of people in different roles, but saw a lot of people in that show. I agree with you. Didn't like it as much as Beyond the Force, but still liked it quite a bit.
Exactly. But one of the best parts of the show, besides hearing about these actors and actresses who portrayed the parts, was at the end to thank them for coming and everything. They would have Jedi Mickey and Leia Minnie come out, and they would all get mouse ears.
Yes.
And then they would have to sing with Mickey and Minnie.
Yes.
And James. That that was always funny, because I remember when Billy D. Williams was there, they not only did they get the Mickey ears, they all got Lando capes.
Oh.
And little Lando mustaches. It was so stinking funny.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. I mean, these shows were great, and like I said, you could find samples of these shows that people recorded while they were at Hollywood Studios for the events on YouTube. Just search Star Wars Weekends, and you'll find it.
Yeah.
I'll throw a link in the show notes to our pal Gian, to his YouTube page, because he's got a lot of shows up there that you can watch as well, and you could check his out. One of the other big shows that they did, and it was hosted by James Arnold Taylor, and this was, if you've talked to James, heard James, listened to his podcast, or followed him on social media, you always heard about his one-man show that he does. He does all his voices. And he did a cut down, shortened version of that show at Disney, and he called it Obi-Wan and Beyond. And that was I always liked James, but as soon as I saw that show, I had it'll change your life, because you don't realize how much that man does that you already know about and had no clue.
Right.
And I remember sitting back and watching that show and just eating it up, because he literally does hundreds of voices, and he sits there and does a lot of them right there for you, just one after the other. And it was just so much fun to watch him just go at it, and it just flowed just perfectly. And that was just a fun show to watch.
Oh, and he does on his podcast. I do listen to his podcast whenever he puts them out. It's not always consistently. Sometimes it's every other week, once a month, stuff like that. But he does talk about it. When he didn't do it at Star Wars Weekends, he called it Talking to Myself, and there he called it Obi-Wan and Beyond. And so it was an incredible show. Now, the other thing about it is he also would tell his story about losing his voice. It's very powerful. Very well done. And like you said, he starts doing all the voices, and people are like, "What? That's you, Johnny Test and Fred Flintstone, and you name it."
Animation domination.
Yeah, exactly.
No, James, I'm not going for your job.
Right.
Don't want it.
Right.
No, he's a very talented guy and does a great job there. And it was really something else to experience his show like that. So again, I'm pretty sure somebody's got it up on, I believe he posted it on his page, some of his show. So you can check out James's YouTube page and see it there. The last big show that they did, really, and it didn't last long. It lasted a long time, and before it was eventually retired in 2014. But the Snig and Oopla's Hyperspace Hoopla.
You're a Star Wars fan if you know the name Snig and Oopla, and I do, and I can see both those characters on stage right now.
So can I, as plain as the nose on my face. They were two characters that hosted basically a stage show. It was an outdoor stage show at Hollywood Studios, and it was literally a comedic It was great. It was just a comedy show, dance show. I remember them doing it dance offs with Star Wars characters. You ain't lived till you have Boba Fett coming out to You Can't Touch It. Can't touch this. Do 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 do. Do. I mean, it was just incredible the type of stuff they did, and of course, all the videos are online. But that was just this. It was just a fun experience. It was laughing. You were dancing, and it always ended up being a dance, some kind of dance battle between the good guys and the bad guys. So you had Ahsoka and Leia and Padme all on, and Chewie, and on one side, then you had Vader and Maul and Boba Fett and Palpatine and Aura Singh and all these others on the other side. And they would just, it was a giant dance off, is what it was. And it was so much fun to watch. I remember watching it going, and it was so crazy and so off the cuff that I remember sitting there watching it a couple of times going, I can't believe George Lucas lets them do this.
Well, agreed. What, he sold it in 2012, but I think there was a form of it. I would have to look at the dates for the Hyperspace Hoopla. I saw it multiple times on that main stage there, but I agree with you. Even after sold it to Disney, I'm like, I'm surprised Disney, because there was some, let's just say, some dance moves by Padme and Leia, primarily Padme, the person who played Padme, with the Darth Vader, that I'm like, I don't know that that's something that's child appropriate. Everything else was fine, and it was funny, and the Emperor and all that kind of stuff. But yes, I'm with you. I'm surprised they did it. But of course, they did shut it down after 14. I do want to say this, that show became so popular at night that if you wanted to get up close, you had to really get there earlier. Again, just like you said, you had to start, and really in 13, 14, really 14 and 15, you really had to make some decisions. I wanted to give a shout out to a couple of friends, Jeff and Lauren Rogers, and their two boys, Miles and Graham. I did a lot of Star Wars weekends with them, and prior to me meeting you, buddy, and I remember at times, Jeff and Lauren are like, look, we'll go over, we'll sit down, we'll chill out, save a spot. And I remember them doing that, and then running around with Eli and Lena and my wife, and coming back over there, and they just had these Primavera spots, like right dead center, right in the front row, and just getting to see all of it up close, and you'd see James up there starting the whole thing off. But that was something that I know it got so popular, it was so packed, that if you're over on Rock and Roller Coaster, and you think you're going to get over and be able to see that, you can be on Tower. It's not happening. You have to be there. It seemed like Jeff and Lauren got over there sometimes 2 hours before it started. Now, again, you can walk up and be at the very back. You can be back down in the shopping area, as you leave, Hollywood Studios. But if you want to get up close and be able to see it really decently, you're probably hour and a half to 2 hours beforehand.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, you had to. And but it was an experience.
Yeah.
It was well worth it, because that show usually led up into, up until they canceled it, led up into their fireworks show, which again went through its morphing change as well. Originally called the Star Wars: A Galactic Spectacular Fireworks Show, later changed to Symphony in the Stars, which was my preferred name for the show.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just Disney always has some of the best fireworks shows you'll see, with the way with the way they combine it with the videos and the lighting and the music and all that. Now you do that for Star Wars. You have beautiful fireworks, you have Star Wars clips playing, and you have John Williams music being pumped through the speakers. It's a religious experience.
Oh, it's incredible. And the way they morphed it towards the end there, Aaron, you and I know they were projecting, stuff onto the Chinese theater over to the right and to the left.
Yep.
They even have the lights in the trees around you, like if, the Emperor shot lightning out, you see this kind of like whitish, bluish light up in the trees above you.
Yep.
Just incredible show.
Oh, it really was. It was, it really was if you did nothing else that day, that was something you had to do. Because it's such a, meeting these people are fun, but this was such seeing that fireworks show and feeling the music. It was probably one of the most moving experiences you could have being at Star Wars weekends, was watching Symphony in the Stars and feeling the music, feeling the explosions and the clips, and it was just.
Oh, I agree, buddy.
Oh, I'm getting chills talking about it. It's just life changing.
Yeah. Oh, I teared up a number of times just to be in the park, looking at that, being at Disney World, being in Hollywood Studios, like you said, John Williams music playing, showing different clips, hearing Obi-Wan talk, hearing Luke, seeing Carrie Fisher up there. Oh man, you want to just, the hero's journey. You want to talk about? I've been I'll cry. I do it. It's just awesome. But it's a very moving because of everything like you said that's combined together. Just such a cool thing to see. That was a no-brainer. You have to see it. Now, what was nice about that is you didn't have to be as up close, like with the Snig and Hooplas, hyperspace hoopla. That you could be back and just look up, and it just was great.
Mm-hmm. It was, and it was great too, because if they didn't have the hyperspace hoopla going on before, they always had a DJ up there. It was, I know they did DJ quote unquote DJ Lobot for a while, which was DJ Elliott dressed up like Lobot.
Yes.
Which if you've been to Celebration or been to Disney, you know who DJ Elliott is. He's a staple around these events.
That's right.
But yeah, those were some incredible shows. All right, so this discussion went longer than we anticipated, so we're splitting it into 2 episodes. So part 2 of our discussion will be in 2 weeks, since we are going bi-weekly. So here's what we got. Next episode will be to have your emails, and we'll have all kinds of continued great discussions. If you do want to continue to participate in the show and you want to share some Star Wars Weekends memories or reactions, hit us up on our social media accounts. Instagram is SW Reactions, Twitter SW Reactions Pod, and of course Facebook, Star Wars Reactions. You can actually send us in messages and direct messages, and we will include those in our next in part 2 of our discussion. Also, of course, feel free to email us as well, show@Star Wars Reactions. In the meantime, if you do want to talk Star Wars or Star Wars Weekends or anything with either of us, of course, you can hit David up on Twitter. His handle is @David_Modders, or email him, David@StarWarsReactions. If you want to discuss Star Wars, anything with me, my personal Twitter is @TAHarris121079, or of course email me, Aaron@StarWarsReactions.com. Until the next time then, we appreciate y'all listening in. Y'all are the best. We appreciate you. We're praying for y'all daily. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to Star Wars Reactions. This is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can email us at show@starwarsreactions.com for our show notes and the latest news from the Star Wars universe. Visit our website at www.starwarsreactions.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWReactionsPod or on Facebook at Star Wars Reactions. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on iTunes. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.